the dark horse candidate who came out of nowhere. And he's not the only one. We've had Franklin Pierce, Abraham Lincoln, Rutherford B. Hayes, James Garfield, Warren G. Harding, and James K. Polk. So we've had, 6 or 7 presidents who are dark horse candidates. So I've been meeting to talk about the Republican National Conventions, the history, not just the Republicans, but all of them, actually. There's the Know-Nothings, American Party, Constitutional Party, Union Party, all these different political parties throughout the years have had these conventions. There's a lot of history. John Kasich, I hope John Kasich gets it, because he is by far the biggest underdog out of those 3. And fucking creepy Ted Cruz, Ted Cruz. Bill Maher said that Ted Cruz has all of the charisma of Jared from Subway without the inspiring story of losing all that weight, which is true. So, I don't know, fuck Cruz, fuck Trump, fuck Kasich, fuck all the Republicans. I didn't even want to pay attention to this shit, but I seen the same shit happen. There was those comments that John Boehner had said that Paul Ryan could just nominate himself. And so I started looking at all the history just to see what different types of outcomes could we get from a convention. Essentially, a convention, Republican, Democrat, the American Party, whatever, is the Green Party, the Libertarian. I think they've already had theirs. Jill Stein, I think, is Green Party. Libertarian is Gary Johnson, and Jesse Ventura might jump in. This is the year of the outsider. If Bernie Sanders tries to tell us to vote for Hillary, well, that we're going to have a problem with that. But the convention is just one big building. Everybody gets into the building, and whatever decisions is made. And I think that's important because Trump is pissed off because he says it's all about the delegates. It's always been about the delegates. When hasn't the system been rigged? We got a Byzantine type of system. He wants to think about the 1912 election, where they want to make it look like Teddy Roosevelt was just being an egotistical bastard, just trying to take it away from Taft. But William Howard Taft, what the fuck was he known for? He got stuck in a bathtub. That fucking fat ass got into a fucking bathtub and couldn't get out, so he needs to be president just because of that? Is that the accomplishment? So Teddy Roosevelt, he ran against him, and he won 9 of the 12 primaries. Fucking kicked the shit out of Taft. And then during the election, Taft only won 8 electoral votes to, Teddy Roosevelt's 100 or 200 or so. But Teddy Roosevelt had a stronger showing in the primaries, in the caucuses, and then he had a stronger showing in the general election. Some people want to say that he split the party and let Woodrow Wilson get in. Well, that's who knows if that's true or not. And I think it's a stupid argument to make. Teddy Roosevelt was the man. Taft stole the election away from Roosevelt. Taft stole. Big thing about the 1912 Republican National Convention, the big thing that I noticed was that Teddy Roosevelt's delegates abstained. And he had like 300 delegates. If his delegates had not abstained and had voted, then he would have got the Republican nomination. He wouldn't have had to start his own progressive bull moose political party, which bull moose, that was after he got fucking shot. He's like, oh, I'm a fucking bull moose. Right? So Teddy Roosevelt, and the 1912 is a big thing because that's when they said that the Republican Party was split in 2 and then allowed the Democrat to get in. I don't know if that's necessarily true because I've heard different. I've heard that Woodrow Wilson would have won regardless if it was just Teddy or just Taft. And so there was no way that they could have lost. In fact, Taft could have just conceded, but he's the fucking president, so it's hard to have the power and then be like, all right. But he lost all them primaries, so, the biggest convention that I want to actually compile these numbers, and let me tell you my numbers right now that I got so far. I've got that Trump is going to win the Republican nomination at 35%. I got Cruz is going to win at 21%, and then I have Kasich is going to win at 31%. Kasich is above Cruz, like seriously, and I'll tell you why, because of the 1920 Republican National Convention, and not just because of that, but just common sense. We see what's happening. Trump isn't going to be able to get the majority. Cruz isn't going to be able to get the majority. So they're going to be battling it out against each other. They're both radical sort of outsiders. Cruz is hated by everybody. Remember Lindsey Graham's joke? You could shoot Cruz in the fucking floor of the Senate and nobody would convict you if it was tried in the Senate because everybody fucking hates Cruz, that's pretty inspiring. You can piss off every fucking body and it doesn't fucking matter to the people. The people love it. The people love it because if you're, ruffling feathers, then I want to focus on this whole thing is just about the 1920 Republican National Convention. Okay, so Warren G. Harding, he becomes the fucking president. This is the Republican National Convention, and this is just 8 years after Teddy Roosevelt. Why I think the 1920 Republican National Convention is so important because I see how John Kasich is going to win. Okay, so my odds were 35% Trump, 21% Cruz, 31% Kasich. Kasich is got 10 points over Cruz, and Trump has 35% being the leader, 13% for an outsider. John Boehner had floated the idea that Paul Ryan could just nominate himself. Well, in terms of how the conventions work, you can nominate anybody that you want to nominate. So Paul Ryan can nominate himself. He can nominate Mitch McConnell, Colin Powell. He could fucking nominate Hillary Clinton. Give her the fucking Republican nomination. She's more of a goddamn Republican anyways. And so, that's important, right? I think. Just a quick explanation of exactly what a brokered or contested convention is. They're essentially the same thing. You want the outcome of, so say you're the Democrats, you want to figure out who the Democratic nomination is going to be before the convention actually comes up. So once the primaries and caucuses are done, do the math. One is going to win. Choose that one. Have reconciliation. So when you get to the thing, it's one big happy party, and you could just say, hey, let's all vote for Bernie Sanders. Hillary supporters, we need you. He's, a good man. He's going to offer her vice presidential spot. What happens with a brokered or contested convention, a brokered or a contested convention is when it has not been decided. It gets to the Democratic or the Republican National Convention, and you still don't know who the candidate is going to be. That means the convention is contested. Contested just means that it's not 100%. The last time we had a contested election was in 1976. Gerald Ford and Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan contested Ford. There was one ballot. Ford won, and then it was over. So it was just contested. Brokered convention, they're basically essentially the same thing because you still have to decide who the nominee is going to be. But a brokered convention has a bad connotation because it makes you think that there's, smoky backdoor deals and a brokered convention. So the party bosses went ahead and decided who the nominee was going to be since the primaries and caucuses couldn't determine who the nominee was going to be. Let's assume that Donald Trump cannot get a majority of the candidates, not just a plurality, but a majority. So if he gets 40% beating everybody else, but he doesn't get 51%, then he loses. And then all those delegates are allowed to vote for whoever the hell they want to vote for. So it and what a brokered convention is extraordinarily important, okay? So it seems like right now the Democrats have a very small chance of becoming a brokered convention. Maybe if half of them abstain, the chair, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, could nominate herself or somebody else, but it's not necessary. So in 1920, with the Republican nomination, they were all already nominated. They're already on the ballot, but there was that one guy that was on the 35th ballot, Franklin Pierce. So he didn't even get on the ballot till the 35th ballot. So the chair, Paul Ryan, can nominate anybody that he wanted to at any point. So on the 35th ballot, if he wants Franklin Pierce to be nominated, now there would have to be a decent reason, right? You can't just steal the election from somebody else. But if Cruz and Trump continue to battle it out and nobody remains, no majority emerges, then Kasich or maybe another candidate needs to be nominated. So it's possible. At the 1920 Republican National Convention, and this is how John Kasich is going to win, okay? So you're going to have Trump and Cruz beating up on each other, and then eventually it's going to go, 10 rounds of voting, and they're just going to say, fuck it, let's have a compromise, moderate candidate, and Kasich will be able to grab the nomination. Been absolutely a ton of dark horse candidates that have done what exactly Warren G. Harding did in 1920. Abraham Lincoln, it took him 3 ballots to win. So he didn't come in with a majority of delegates. It took him, he's more of a Cruz type of guy. He come in second place, and then it took him 3 ballots to eventually overtake whoever was running against Abraham Lincoln. And everybody always forgets about this. Okay, so 1920 Republican National Convention, you got Warren G. Harding, and it says 9, and then it says 10 before shifts, 10 after shifts. So it looks like it's about 11 ballots. 11 ballots that the 1920 Republican National Convention went on. The first ballot had Leonard Wood and Frank Loudon. And who the fuck is Leonard Wood? Who the fuck is Frank Loudon? These two guys were going back and forth. For the first three, Leonard Wood won, then Frank Loudon won, and neither one. Actually a bad thing that Warren G. Harding was nominated, but just the strategy. Two leading opponents, right? Wood and Johnson. Who the fuck is Wood? Who the fuck is Johnson? Nobody gives a shit, but it says here both were of the progressive faction of the Republican Party. Teddy Roosevelt was a so-called progressive, right? And so, and Loudon, he had an independent streak too, so that made him a little bit better, but Warren G. Harding was far more acceptable to the old guard leaders of the party, the old guard. And that's exactly what the old guard is going to choose Kasich, because Kasich is more tolerable than, you know, for the old guard, for Cruz and Trump. No fucking way. The old guard would like Kasich better. Warren G. Harding, of course, was one of the greatest presidents that we ever had with the Teapot Dome scandal. So Leonard Wood was a United States Army officer. He served as the Chief of Staff of the United States Army, Military Governor of Cuba, Governor General of the Philippines. So he's an imperialist, right? He's a progressive imperialist. He's like a fucking Napoleon. I don't want to denigrate his fucking career, but seriously, he didn't become president. So the whole time before the 1920 Republican National Convention, everybody's talking about who's going to fucking win it. Is it going to be Frank Orrin Loudon, right? Is it going to be Cruz, or is it going to be Leonard Wood, Trump? And it was neither. It was Warren G. Harding. So I'm looking at the 1920 Republican National Convention Wikipedia page, and I'm looking at the ballot. So the very first ballot, you had Leonard Wood, who won. And then you had Leonard Wood, who won the second ballot. The first ballot he won. Leonard Wood won the second ballot. Leonard Wood won the third ballot. The fourth ballot. On the fifth ballot, he lost 303 to 299. So he lost by 4 votes. Let's carry on. So he lost by 4 votes, right? 299 to 303 on the fifth ballot. But again, it wasn't the majority. It was 30.4%. And so Leonard Wood, he lost. But, you know, it was only for Frank Loudon, it was only 31 or 32% or so. So neither one was able to secure the majority. And some of these conventions, it took a supermajority. It took 2/3 of the delegates to vote for them. And so it's an incredibly undemocratic process, because it doesn't fucking matter the primaries, the caucuses. It matters what happens in the convention. I just feel like perception is power. So if Trump has gone and won all these fucking things and then they try to take it from him, the only way they'll get away with taking it from Trump is if they give the illusion that it's fair. And so if they give the illusion that it's fair, they play by the rules, and Kasich won, you know, c'est la vie. That's the only way that I think that the Trump supporters would actually be able to just... The Republican National Convention goes 11 ballots. So Leonard Wood wins the first 4. Frank Loudon wins the 5th. And then the 6th one is 311.5. Both of them had 311.5 delegates. I don't know how they got the 0.5. That's how do you get half a delegate? Just one half of me is for the other guy. So they're split even, you know, dead even. And then it goes to the 7th ballot, 312 to 311.5. So you wind up winning by half a point. 8th ballot, 299 to 307. Still split in almost like around 300. And then all of a sudden, Warren G. Harding on the 9th ballot just fucking went to the top. So clearly there was a deal that was broke. They saw that each one of these votes, neither one, Wood or Loudon, was winning. And so the brokers behind the scenes says, let's vote for Harding. And then he wound up getting 374. He wasn't really that bad, so to speak. Warren G. Harding was only in office for 2 years. He winds up dying of a cerebral hemorrhage caused by a heart disease in San Francisco while on a Western speaking tour. And then Calvin Coolidge, the great Calvin Coolidge, becomes president. So you had Woodrow Wilson, Warren G. Harding, Calvin Coolidge. And then you're going to have Hoover, and then the Great Depression, and then FDR. So the way that the 1920 Republican National Convention went down was because of Harry M. Daughtry. Harding's nomination, said to have been secured in negotiations among party bosses in a smoke-filled room, hence brokered convention, was engineered by Harry M. Daughtrey, and he had it all figured out. This was Harding's political manager. He wound up winning, right? You have 374.5 Warren G. Harding on the 9th ballot in 1920 in the Republican National Convention. Warren G. Harding had 6%, 6%, 6%, 6%, 8%, 9%, 11%, 13%, and then on the 9th ballot, he got 38%. Still not the majority, but once it's people saw that he was able to amass all those votes and that he was a good compromise candidate, on the 10th vote, they give him 65%, and then there's another 11th vote, which give him 70%. So Warren G. Harding is called a dark horse, and that's what John Kasich is trying to accomplish. He says, check your history. John Kasich did, and he's absolutely right. So it makes it look like all these other fucking bastards who are running look like total pussies. If you're going to run for president, you go to the damn convention. You go all the way. You run the gauntlet. But even Warren G. Harding, and eventually once he got the Republican nomination, because America is just a coin toss, Tweedledee or Tweedledum, he was able to win the presidential election. So he walked into the 1920 Republican National Convention and not winning for the first 8 ballots. Leonard Wood, Frank Orrin Loudon, and he's a Republican Party politician from Illinois. Looks like a fucking asshole. Looks like a prick. But it was between them two. They couldn't get a majority, and so Warren G. Harding, became in the very the dark horse candidate who came out of nowhere. And he's not the only one. We've had Franklin Pierce, Abraham Lincoln, Rutherford B. Hayes, James Garfield, Warren G. Harding, and James K. Polk. So we've had, 6 or 7 presidents who are dark horse candidates. And, the stories are phenomenal. Franklin Pierce, 49 ballots. So on the 35th ballot, Franklin Pierce got on the ballot, and then he wound up winning it on the 49th ballot. Abraham Lincoln took him 3 ballots, Rutherford B. Hayes. The 7th ballot, James Garfield, took him 36 ballots. And then Warren G. Harding took him 9 ballots. And then James K. Fuck, I hate being sick, man. James K. Polk, then, he wound up winning and then conquering all of Mexico. So that's these are dark horse candidates. These are all John Kasich, James Garfield, Warren G. Harding, James Polk, Rutherford B. Hayes, Abraham Lincoln, and Franklin Pierce are dark horse candidates just like Kasich. Now the 13% could be anybody. It could be Mitch. It could be Colin Powell. It could be Rubio coming up, but it's only 13%. Small 1932, it took FDR 4 ballots. And so they say that it's an anachronistic ritual. Essentially, it's a big cheerleading party. The primaries and caucuses, the entire nomination, who the party is going to nominate, the question is settled. So by the time the convention comes up, it's just one big cheerleading, marketing, promotional type of thing. So you get up there and you say, oh, how great, George Bush was, even though, you're running against him if you're Ronald Reagan, right? Ronald Reagan, George Bush are sitting there running against each other. Or 76, you had the last contested convention was Gerald Ford and Ronald Reagan, and it goes to 1 ballot, and then after that, it was over. So, Ronald Reagan was like, oh, I'm going to become president. 1 vote, and he lost, and was like, all right, fine, I won't become president. But that's the last contested convention, and it hasn't happened for a long-ass time. He became the Attorney General after Warren G. Harding became president. Before the convention, Harry M. Daughtrey was quoted as saying, I don't expect Senator Harding to be nominated on the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd ballots, but I think we can afford to take chances that about 11 minutes after 2, Friday morning of the convention, when 15 or 12 wary men are sitting around the table, someone will say, who will we nominate? At that decisive time, the friends of Harding will suggest him, and we can well afford to abide by the result. Daughtrey. His prediction was essentially exactly what the fuck happened. So on the 9th ballot, he winds up getting, a whole bunch of votes. On the 10th ballot, he wins. And then 11th ballot, he gets, most of the support. So it took 9 to 10 ballots for Warren G. Harding for democracy. People were going to say that it turned bad. I think in 1952, there was fist fights. 1924, the Klan Bake, the Democratic National Convention. I want to say Baltimore or maybe Madison Square Garden. But the Klan Bake, and it was because there was pro and anti-Ku Klux Klan elements at the Democratic National Convention in 1924. So Klan Bake, it just makes me, that sticks in your head when you think about all these different national conventions. But during the Klan Bake, it goes to 103 ballots. So, there's a lot of competition. I forget where I'm going with this. Let's see, what the fuck was I trying to say? Dark horse candidates. I don't know. Here's some other candidates that was on here. Calvin Coolidge, Robert M. La Follette, and Herbert C. Hoover. Warren G. Harding beat Calvin Coolidge, Robert La Follette, who, of course, Warren G. Harding totally smashed Leonard Wood. Who the fuck is that? And Frank Loudon. Give me a fucking break. Ba Fam Goo. Warren G. Harding. That's who was a dark horse candidate, won on the 9th one. John Kasich can totally do that. I think he's got a 31% chance of winning. Donald Trump has a 35%. Donald Trump can get the majority of the delegates still, before the convention even comes out. And Ted Cruz, you guys are creepy. He's a creepy dude. You remember that when he tried to kiss his daughter and his daughter was like pushing away and he was like, no, you will come here and you will accept my love. You will accept my saliva all over your face. And then give that weird little creepy look afterwards. It's weird. It's fucking creepy. So, Franklin Pierce, Abraham Lincoln, Rutherford B. Hayes, James Garfield. It's been a long time. I'll come back. That's what I'm trying to say is that John Kasich is the biggest underdog out of the three main front-runner candidates. It looks like he's going to be a dark horse. You might have like a shadow horse, some surprise candidate that just jumps out of nowhere. But it'd be exciting for John Kasich to win the nomination, to take it away from Trump and Cruz, to pull Warren G. Harding. If John Kasich pulls a Warren G. Harding on Trump and Cruz, that would be amazing. It'd be fantastic. And even though this is, bad because it's like fighting, there's fist fights at the Klan Bake. That's what I was trying to mention. 1924, the governor of Kentucky and I want to say Georgia, but two states. Kentucky was definitely one of them, but the governor was in a fist fight. So that looks bad on camera, right? Can you imagine Kasich and Trump fist fighting? And so that they think that because of that bad publicity, it'll be bad, but I think it'll be good, more turnout, more. America's present need is not heroics, but healing, not nostrums, but normalcy, not revolution, but restoration, not agitation, but adjustment, not surgery, but serenity, not the dramatic, but the dispassionate, not experiment, but equipoisy, not submergence in internationality, but sustainment in triumphant nationality. Warren G. Harding, speech before the Home Market Club, Boston, May 14th, 1920. A return to normalcy, not heroics, but healing, not nostrums. The fuck's a nostrum? But normalcy, not revolution, but restoration, not agitation. And then what the hell is this? Not experiment, but equipoisy. Equipoisy. I'm gonna look it up and I'll know.